everybody. Welcome to InPsightRadio. I am your host, Danielle Egnew, and you are a fly on the wall to everywhere. I just like saying that every week. It's so old school. And the fact of the matter is, it's true. You know, I was just having this conversation with a really good friend of mine the other day about what it's like to look into timelines all the time, or just kind of be told whether you want to be told or not, what's going on in a backstory of some weird government standoff situation or some news headline, or you read about a political figure and they're saying they did or didn't do this or that. And then, of course, these angels come along and, you know, if it's in your consciousness and you happen to ask a question that could be even, you know, offhanded in the back of your head, like, wow, I wonder if that person's really innocent of this crime or whatever. And then you get the angelic ticker tape that starts going, well, this individual committed this offense and this offense and this offense, and or they've done something in the past, but this isn't it. Or, I mean, it's crazy. It's literally crazy. So when I say fly on the wall to everywhere, that's really what I mean. And most of the time that's fun, and some of the time that's really a bummer. I really have a lot of, I guess there's part of me that has like envy sometimes for people that have chosen not to become very connected with their psychic or spiritual gifts. And listen, this isn't some, oh, poor me, I'm having such a hard time, me. It's not that at all. It's just, I literally wonder what it would be like sometimes to be able to not feel as many impulses as I do in the world, especially as our world is changing so rapidly and we're coming up on all kinds of new governmental systems and priorities and how we invest and all kinds of things, literally. So, I really do have kind of this sick curiosity about what it would be like to get out of bed and wander into your backyard and pour yourself a cup of coffee and play with your dogs and look at the sky and open up the newspaper and that's your day. That would be blissful, and again, this isn't a poor me thing. I think about being the fly on the wall to everywhere, and I'm so used to it, gang. Honestly, it doesn't really even flicker on my screen of anomalies at this point in my life. Yet the overarching issue here, of course, is that we all have something that we've got to get through in a day, right? And for me, it would just be like, well, what if my biggest freak out was something I read in the newspaper and then wondering if it was actually going to happen? And I suppose there's probably a lot of anxiety around that too, right? I mean, if you don't know if something's going to happen, that's pretty scary. As opposed to reading it and going, yeah, that's never going to happen, or that's not even the right story, or that's not even the backstory. What is going on? Whatever, I'm blowing this off. I don't know. It would be fun. The bad part about being the fly on the wall to everywhere, or the downside, is that you get information whether you want it or not. It's not like your I Dream of Jeannie and you just get this opportunity to only know the stuff you want to and just not pay attention to all the inconvenient things. That's just not a thing. So anyway, I was thinking about that, the fly on the wall to everywhere. And recently, I put up a post on Facebook regarding what I was seeing in terms of COVID and what was coming. I've been getting a lot of messages from people in Facebook, emails, texts, whatever. People have been asking, speaking of being in the fly on the wall to everywhere, and every timeline, that's always fun. I've been in questions about the Delta variant. What's going to happen with it? How many people are going to die? People are scared. People want to know what's happening. Now, this round of COVID-19, people are a little less freaked out by because we've actually gone through this for a year. So people are understanding protocols naturally for isolation and for wearing masks and for washing your hands and not, going into some place you've never been before and then picking your nose when you get home and all the things, right? Yet what I was seeing as I looked into the future, we had some timelines that were great and we had gotten control of COVID. And there were other timelines where we were just spinning into more and more sickness and more people were dying. And that was disturbing to me. So I checked with these angels just to make sure I wasn't having some, fly on the wall to everywhere meltdown or something. I'm like, you guys, is this really a thing? I mean, we have so many people that are getting vaccinated right now. And we have a lot of people who aren't getting vaccinated for a litany of reasons. It's not just one reason. Some it's religious. Others, they don't think it's going to help. Others think it's got weird stuff in the vaccine. I mean, there's 100 million reasons why there are people who aren't getting the vaccine because they're afraid they'll have an adverse reaction to it. Some people just can't be bothered because it's time out of their day and they hear that people get nauseated or don't feel well potentially if they get the vaccine, so they don't get it. So whatever. There's a million reasons why people don't get it. And this podcast is not about whether you got the vaccine or not, okay? It's not about whether you wear masks or not. The podcast is about COVID-19 in the future. So the subject matter may be sensitive to some. It might not bother anybody. However, just know that my job is to report on what they bring me in our future so that we can potentially make things better, waylay disaster, do all those things, right? So I was looking into some of our timelines, and of course, many, many people, I think not vast majority, I think we're finally past the halfway point of everybody in the country of vaccinating age being vaccinated. But we still got a ways to go. And there's a lot of people who just aren't going to get this vaccine no matter what. Religious reasons, all kinds of reasons. So again, this is not about masks or the vaccine. So, there's no need for anybody who's offended by the podcast to post all the links to, all the reasons you shouldn't get vaccinated or why you should get vaccinated. This podcast is about being part of a whole. What is it to be part of a collective, part of a whole? How are we rating in the spiritual world for being part of the whole? And where are we falling short in being part of the whole? And I'm using the vaccination and mask issue in America as an example because, gang, that's really low-hanging fruit, So again, I posted this piece on Facebook and I put I literally had to put a disclaimer at the top that said sensitive material, post or whatever. And it really wasn't sensitive material. Well, it kind of was, but people are so touchy about this mask and vaccine issue. Like it's become this hill to die on for people, either against it or pro-vaccine and mask and whatever. And what I think is so interesting is for me, it's not about whether it's pro or con. For me, this issue is far more about what I'm seeing in the future and then how to back time from the future and make sure that future, we kind of stave it off at the past and create a minimal amount of timelines that could potentially end up like that, as opposed to just ignoring the situation, hoping it works out, hoping nature takes its course, and like a forest fire, letting hundreds of millions of acres of burn because you have to, because it's out of control, and then just hoping nature will correct it in the next 100 years, right? And if that's the way it's going to go with humans, that is definitely the way it's going to go. I always say, gang, that the earth is going to keep going. Mother Earth, our plants, our trees, our animals, our water will rejuvenate itself. Our marine life will rejuvenate itself over time. The human race is completely optional on this planet. We are in no way necessary for nature to survive, okay? As a matter of fact, if you take us out of the equation, nature thrives. We are nature killers. We are the virus on the skin of the planet, okay? So when you hear me talk about these timelines, we're talking about stewardship for this planet on which we are a virus or a hitchhiker or something that is procreating so quickly, yet really not giving back to the actual space that we're living in hardly at all. I mean, we're takers. We are takers and terraformers when it comes to living in Congress or not with nature, especially in our first world. Now, we're not so bad when we get to our third world, but in our first world countries, I mean, geez, gang, we're just like crazed Pac-Men, consuming everything we can and throwing it out the window at 95 miles an hour as we drive through the desert and have a joyride with the Beach Boys playing. I mean, that's living in America for most people. So when I'm talking about vaccines and masks and whatever, this is just one example. Yet when are we going to learn as a human species the concept of stewardship? When are we going to learn this? Because being part of a whole is important if the human species is going to thrive and survive. Now, I'm going to pick on my fellow metaphysical community for just a minute here, because I'm part of that community, so I can speak with confidence on quite a bit of opinions and dialogues that I've seen that have gone through this community. Everyone's spiritual walk is different. Everybody has a right to their opinion. By God, we're human beings, and we are here with our lenses for a reason, not only to bring our opinions forward, but also to live the lives that we're given to live in very specific ways. So, I'm laughing because it's so weird to read some of the opinions of some folks who work in the spiritual or metaphysical community, because there's a lot of rallying against vaccines, masks, social distancing, the idea that the COVID virus can kill you. There's a lot of that in the metaphysical community. In fact, I see it more there than I do when people like to reference far right-wing activists that are anti-vax or anti-mask. And for some reason, the religious right gets really nailed with this identity of being anti-vaxxer and anti-masker. Yet I have to tell you, at least in my experience, and maybe just because I hang out with more metaphysical people than I do people in the far religious right, my experience is that a lot of the metaphysical community thinks that COVID is a joke and thinks that it's some conspiracist, weird ploy to, ignite fear in the third dimension and keep us from raising to the ninth dimension. And a very basic public health issue in the metaphysical community has now turned into the spiritual Olympics. I can't even begin to tell you since we began wearing masks back in 2020, I would, post a picture of a mask or that I thought was cute, or myself and my wife wearing masks out someplace. And I would receive just a lot of crazy comments through social media, mostly from my colleagues in the metaphysical field. And these folks were saying things like, I can't believe you're living in fear. I can't believe this is your choice. I can't believe your angels are lying to you. Obviously, you're part of, the cabal. I got called part of the cabal. The cabal! I mean, come on! It got really stupid. Yet a lot of the people in the metaphysical community really do feel that vaxxing is unhealthy, that wearing masks is unhealthy, etc., and so on. And, again, this is probably going to just ruffle some feathers out there, but gang, I'm sorry. My job isn't always to make friends. My job is to report on upcoming timelines and choices we can make to make them, in my opinion, better. I think it's better when less people die. Now, granted, yes, there are people that would argue that we should die off because we're choking out the world's resources and human beings are overpopulating. I understand that we are, yet I really, really would like to see us manage this problem in a different way besides mass death. And we seem to be going the mass death route right now. The issue of stewardship comes up when I'm speaking with a lot of my metaphysical colleagues. And I pose the question to many of them, okay, so you can do whatever you want with your own personal body. I get that. Yet, does it not concern you that if you do not receive a vaccine, then you are going to become the petri dish that all these COVID variants mutate within? Because the COVID variants aren't able, well, the COVID virus, first of all, isn't really able to get a handle or get a foothold on somebody with the vaccine. I mean, some people are coming down with it, of course, just like some people get the flu after they get the flu vax. However, it's the unvaxxed folks, gang. And if you're an unvaccinated person, I'm certainly not trying to insult you. This is simply a medical fact. Just like, going to the bathroom. We all go to the bathroom. We all go number 1 and number 2. That's not meaning to be grotesque or insult anybody. It's just a physical fact. It's a physical fact that folks who choose to not vaccinate are then leaving themselves open to become hosts for stronger mutating viruses as the virus tries to reposition itself because, somebody like me who's vaccinated, the regular old COVID virus is going to hit that vaccine and it's not going to be able to really get a foothold in my body. Its DNA is not going to be able to do what it needs to do. It's going to take a snapshot of that and say, oh man, I'm having a harder time being alive. I hope I can find a host that I can live in long enough to mutate. So, and it's not that the vaccines are causing the virus to mutate either, gang. That is wrong information that's out there, okay? That's just wrong. The bottom line is that there are 4 COVID variants right now that are running around the planet. There might be more than that. There's only 4 they're reporting on. And the Delta variant exploded in India amongst unvaccinated populations because that was millions of petri dishes that vaccine was not reaching, because poor India doesn't have the financial resources that the United States does. So the virus is getting in there into people and it's mutating. And it's getting an opportunity to mutate and become literally the dominant form of the virus. And so that's what begins to propagate and infect people's cells. And then people pass the Delta variant. So if you are an unvaccinated person listening to this, though I understand, gosh darn it, you're right, that's your body and you can do what you want with it, the question of stewardship comes in here. Because the more unvaccinated people we have during a global pandemic that's introducing a COVID-19 virus that the human species has not processed yet, the more unvaccinated people we have, literally the more laboratories for variants we have. And those variants, by the nature of a viral load, evolve to be stronger and stronger and stronger. All right? And this is where I really struggle, because in my interpretation of spirituality, and this is just my interpretation, all right? My interpretation is that to be a spiritual person is to do no harm. It is to leave the earth better than you found it. It's to develop your own person past your own fears and restrictions and hesitations and pride and arrogance and all the things that define our id and ego. Our spirit is asking to grow. And in order for our spirit to grow, we got to give it a chance to grow. In order to give it a chance to grow, man, we've got to push ourselves to do things that sometimes defy our own will. And so when the question of stewardship comes up in the spiritual community, I've had very interesting conversations with very, very good friends of mine who are extremely amazing healers and spiritual people there's a disconnect, in my opinion. They don't think they have a disconnect. I believe they have a disconnect. We agree to disagree in that area. But I believe they have a disconnect in the area of that sense of stewardship to others, because they just will not wear a mask and they just will not get that vaccine. And to them, that is bowing to fear. It's almost defying a religion of sorts for them, a belief system that if I get this vaccine, I'm defying my own body's ability to, grow immunity, or I'm buying into this, patriarchal corporate fear-mongering out there, or the media is trying to control people or whatever. So for me, I look at this situation. Again, this podcast is about stewardship, not about necessarily who's vaxxed or not. It's about what is your idea of stewardship? Because for me, the idea of stewardship is, wow, I really don't want to be a petri dish for unbelievably deadly variants to grow in. And then I really don't want to go around breathing that deadly variant into other people's faces because of my personal belief system. For me, it's more important to my idea of stewardship is, hey, let's not kill people I don't know. Let's not make my body a trampoline, a play park for every wacky COVID variant that wants to develop itself, especially now that we've got vaccines. And a virus is a living thing, gang. It just wants to stay alive. So I had a friend of mine, I was having this conversation with my very metaphysical friend, and that friend became extremely offended that I called them a petri dish. My friend said, how dare you reduce me to a petri dish? That's dehumanizing. And it kind of flew out my mouth. This is a very good friend of mine, so we're very candid with one another. And it flew out my mouth. How dare you not care that you're killing people? That's incomprehensible to me. You creepy, conscienceless petri dish? Come on, man. And my friend laughed and I laughed and, we kept drinking what we were drinking and on we went. However, it's just hard because my idea of stewardship and what my spiritual understanding of caring for the world or the others might not be another person's. And clearly it's not. And in fact, I had a really long conversation with a friend of mine who is choosing not to be my friend anymore because they think that I've fallen prey to the fear and I'm not researching enough these bizarre, strange sites that don't have any peer-reviewed information on them. But that's okay because some, secret alien channeler said that the COVID vaccine was, the Anunnakis plot to infect us all and put us all under a mind spell. I'm not kidding. This is actually a thing. I'm trying to remember it all. You think I'm making this up as a comedy bit? I'm not. I'm actually trying to remember what my friend said. It was incredible. And again, I am deeply sorry if I'm offending anyone whose belief system falls in line with this Anunnaki narrative. I can only speak from my perspective, which deals with these angels. And I asked them, gee, is this an Anunnaki plot? And they're like, no, man, it's a freaking virus. The earth is a gross place. And the angels are like, this just grows here. I tried to explain to my friend that there was no big freak out with getting this vaccine. It wasn't an Anunnaki plot trying to make human beings back into their servants. That virologists, people who work up on viral loads, educated, science-based people who go to school for a long time to learn good research habits and learn from peer-reviewed hard science. Virologists have been working on the COVID-19 vaccine for a long time. They're also working on an Ebola vaccine and vaccines for other horrific brain-melting bacteria and viral loads that we in the outside public have yet to even hear about because we would panic, go get a spoon out of the kitchen drawer and dig a pit in our backyard, covering ourselves up with a snorkel and a can of peaches and just hoping for the best. Okay? So the COVID-19 vaccine, that had been developed, or having been developed actually for quite a long time, and then the whole world put all of their resources together and we got the vaccine we have today. The Anunnaki did not beam the vaccine down, okay? So my friend, obviously we're talking about belief systems, gang. When does our belief system interrupt our sense of stewardship? Or when is our stewardship our belief system? Because clearly, my sense of stewardship for the planet, for other people, when I look at the timelines where we just let COVID go kind of in the way we are in this country and what that's going to do for the variants coming, which I'll get to, my sense of stewardship becomes a belief system. I believe strongly that if I don't do my part, then I'm going to be part of the problem. And ushering some of these timelines in that I'm looking at here, which are grotesque. They are ghastly. And they are unnecessary. Yet, as we have people wandering around the richest country in the world where free vaccines are being handed out to everybody and vaccines are going bad because people just won't take them, people are choosing to be walking petri dishes for these heinous variants that I'm seeing in the future that are running. We're running about 3 to 4 on these timelines. I've got 7 timelines in the future here. And the reason that my belief system is so strongly suited toward wishing to have a sense of stewardship that would waylay these timelines is maybe because of what I'm looking at. And maybe if other people were looking at what I'm looking at, their belief system may shift as well. Yet I'm not so sure of that, because I think our belief systems are really tied to the spiritual lessons that we're attempting to learn, right? So I'm not saying I'm any better or any worse than any of my friends who may or may not believe in vaxxing and masking. I'm simply saying that my belief system is tied to what I'm looking at. And when I look at these timelines, gang, honest to God, if you could see what I was looking at, you'd be like, crap, I'll stick that stupid needle in my arm for 5 seconds twice. Who cares? I'm looking at 7 timelines, and 3 of them, which is a minority, but just barely, we've got a 60-40 split here. 3 of them have a COVID variant that develops, and this is in the future. So if you're catching this podcast at a later time, please understand I am not giving current COVID information. This is a future psychic peek. It's a psychic prediction on what I'm looking at. It's not even a prediction. I'm looking at it in the future timelines, so we can call it a prediction, but I'm more looking at it. It's a future issue on COVID, so we're going to call it future COVID, just so nobody's confused if they tune in halfway into this podcast. Future COVID that grows in unvaccinated people is so nasty and so strong that it begins to infect all mucus tissue throughout the body, not just the mama. Like, say I'm a pregnant woman, it's not just going to infect my lung tissue as I'm breathing in air. It's going to go through my body. It's going to go through my umbilical cord to my baby, and it's going to grow huge COVID webs in the unborn baby's lungs. And that unborn baby is dead the minute it can't breathe through that umbilical cord anymore. It's going to hit the air and not even be able to cry. I mean, I'm really trying to keep it together here for this podcast, because if you could hear the sound of a new infant that comes out of its mother, it's this whistling, wheezing sound that these babies have. They can't get enough air in to even cry. It's this gasping, gurgling, wheezing sound. And this whistle instead of a cry, and this kind of weird, weak little groan. And they're trying to intubate the baby. They're trying to shove a respirator down the baby's throat the minute it's out. And that baby it's not going to be viable. It just dies. But honest to God, if you could hear the sound of this, you get a goddamn vaccine, okay? This is hideous. And it happens because we have such a huge, in this future COVID variant, which grows inside of the lung tissue of babies. It's inhumane. And so my sense of stewardship really calls me to want to not have anyone experience what I'm looking at in the future. We have 3 timelines of a future COVID variant that is so nasty that it infects babies that aren't even out of the womb yet. And those babies are just dead on arrival. My sense of stewardship wants to avoid that, and I understand that there are people out there that would say, well, them's the breaks. We're overpopulating the planet. Yet, gang, it's horrific, those babies. They come out all gray and blue, and it's just, I can't even. As a matter of fact, I had to take a little break right there and go take a little crying break. I told my engineer, just hold on. I got to get this out of my system. So, obviously my belief system is very tied to what I'm looking at in the future. And other people may not be seeing that future. Other people may be seeing the other 4 timelines we have, where we managed to get this COVID issue in the United States under control, and off we go. And we don't contribute to the variants that are flying all over the world, because we have access to vaccines and masks and all kinds of other things that a lot of our populations in other parts of the world don't. What is stewardship to you? I guess it's all different. It's different for all of us. And I can't expect somebody that I guess doesn't see future timelines like I do. I can't expect them to understand my passion in this area. I can't expect them to have the same priorities as I do. However, we have to start asking ourselves, are we failing in the stewardship of one another and the planet? And, yes, there are global pandemics that break out every so many hundreds of years and they thin out populations. And that's kind of a nature thing. We can't completely buck the natural system or the natural order of thinning out an expanded population. And human beings, I've said this a million times on this podcast, human beings are way past our due date for extinction. We really are. We've been smart. We've stayed ahead of the climate. We've stayed ahead of diseases. We've stayed ahead of natural disasters. We can detect if there's great big space rocks that are going to hit the planet, that are going to give us a blackout nuclear type winter. I mean, we can keep ourselves fairly safe now, at least in the first world. And the first world can try to help the third world, and we can try to do our best. Yet naturally, we are in a position where we're going to start losing population base, and we have been. We have been through all this COVID monstrosity. Yet, when I am confronted with opportunities that we have to make changes, and it's so simple. This is such a simple thing. It's a simple thing for me because I don't have problems with vaccines and whatnot. I do believe that some kids get over-vaxxed when they first come out the womb, and we should probably space that out a little and not shock that baby's system. However, we're not talking about babies. We're talking about adults, and we're talking about a really grotesque and grisly timeline, 3 of them out of 7, that's a 60-40 split, that we've got coming. And the morale of this, the morale that I see of mothers who, got COVID and didn't believe in the vax, and then their babies are dying, and, then they're dying. And this is just incomprehensible to me. However, I can't do anything to affect the belief system of another person. Nothing in this podcast, I don't think, is going to affect the belief system of someone else. If they truly believe that vaxxing is wrong, that it's just some Anunnaki plot, or it's a big pharma plot, or we're all being manipulated, or they're trying to kill us all, or whatever. I say it like that because honestly, if we're living on a planet that's so controlled by a small cabal of people that want to kill everybody, then kill me. I don't want to live on that planet. That planet is ass. Kill me and let me go to the other side, and I will party it up with Prince over there, man. Seriously. Why somebody would want to stay on a planet that if it was actually controlled by a cabal of people that were trying to kill all of us? I do believe that there is a big monetary cabal. Yes, there is. They're not trying to kill us with vaccines, gang. Because we make them money. They're after the money. If all the worker bees are dead, who's going to make their widgets and buy their widgets, and they will be out of money. So it doesn't even make any sense, this ideology of somebody evil is trying to take us over with vaccines. It doesn't make any sense, especially when you have other countries outside of the United States that are begging for vaccines, like India. Okay? So, in the United States, we have a privilege issue, and we have a privilege to not get a vaccine if we don't want to. And again, everybody's got to do what they think is right. Yet, I think the stewardship question is really important. I had another metaphysical friend of mine come forward and tell me that they felt that if they did get the vaccine, then their belief system was that it was feeding into fear. And they felt that their spiritual job here on the earth was to bring up joy and abandon and release and just, generally be joyful people and not live in fear and not be in the worst case scenario. So they felt that if they took the vaccine, it was spitting in the face of God and their destiny, which was really to raise the vibration through joy and faith. Okay? So again, there's a lot of people who don't get vaccinated for a lot of different reasons. When it comes to stewardship, though, at what point do any of our beliefs have to get stuck on the back burner and we just got to do what's best for the whole? Or do we ever get to that point in America because our popos are patted every day with everything we want? I mean, do we ever get to that point of actually saying, God, I might have to do something that might make me stretch a little? Listen, I was a little nervous about getting this vaccine when it first came out. I was looking ahead. I was seeing complications with it. All the things we now have seen with the vaccine, I was seeing. And I thought, oh man, what if I get the vaccine and I'm one of the people that has complications? The bottom line was, yeah, I got the first one, no big deal. The second one, made me feel flu-y for a day. I got the Moderna vax. It was not a big deal. And off we rolled, okay? So at what point, though, do we have to give up what our personal belief is to look at what's going on around us? And I've thought about this for myself. I thought, at one point, and I can talk politics for just a second. I'm generally a left-leaning person. And there has been over this last 4 years so much polarization in both fringes of politics on the right and left that I'm not really relating with the fringy out there left that wants to jump on everybody if they mistake a pronoun once in a while, or freak out on somebody because somebody did not understand the proper terminology for a gender identification issue. And this policing of people that is super intense on the far left. I mean, I get correcting people so we can all learn. That's called growing. But the policing people and the pulling people through the hedge backwards and the beating people up and the bullying of people because they're not getting with the program quickly enough. And really the ageism issues I'm seeing on the far fringy left are really disturbing. Where if you're over the age of 30, it's like Logan's Run. A lot of super fringy fellow lefties want to just blow you out the airlock if you're over the age of 30 because you're part of the diseased old world. And, there's just such a fanaticism out there. I don't relate with that. I'm a peace, love, and harmony girl. I'm not part of the left. And then I look on the far right, and everybody's super crazy out there, and they're not going to wear masks, and they're going to infiltrate school boards, and they're going to make sure that, women have to have their husband with them to go to any doctor appointment in case they're pregnant so they can't decide their health issues for themselves. And that's super crazy. And I don't interface with as many of those folks as I do some of my fellow lefties that are, dangling off the edge of the fringe over there, who don't really talk to me anymore because they consider me old, outmoded, out of date, out of touch, moderate. I've been called the most heinous names. I'm just like, aren't you the generation that doesn't like labels? Because y'all came up with a whole bunch, but whatever you're doing, you do you. So, I'm a Gen Xer. I'm like, whatever, man. So the bigger issue being the stewardship. At what point do we stop getting into our own little myopic tea bags because of our belief systems and demanding that everybody be just like us, or we're going to be mad? Or at what point do we need to give up some of our beliefs to do what's best for the whole? And then there's the question of what is best for the whole. I have a lot of, again, very wonderful, talented, intelligent, metaphysical, lefty friends who will never get this vaccine and will not wear a mask because they believe it's best for the whole, that through their eyes, we do not fall into a fear consciousness, and through their eyes end up terrorizing our children by scaring them that there's this pandemic that my friends truly believe can be eradicated by raising a personal vibration, which I actually think is true, but try getting, most of America to raise their vibration when they can't even do 5 sit-ups in the morning. I mean, that we're talking a consciousness issue here. And maybe my friends, it is strange. I have yet to have a few of my friends here who don't choose to get vaccinated and aren't wearing masks. A few of them have gotten sick. Most of them have not. So maybe there's something to it. I don't know. Yet I'm seeing a lot of people get sick who thought it would never happen to them. So, I guess the issue of this isn't about whether you should get vaxxed or not. It's about where does our issue of stewardship come in based on our belief systems. And it's a tough conversation to have. Nobody is going to be able to convince me that vaccines are a bad idea because I'm looking at 3 timelines in the future that are so god awful that I can't even talk about them on this podcast without having my engineer stop and me taking a crying break in the bathroom. Okay? So I'm not going to believe that it's just okay if we don't do this. Just like I'm probably not going to get someone who believes that these vaccines are toxic, deadly, and fear-mongery to get one. Yet what can we all do to meet in the middle in caring for this world? Because the other half of this stewardship podcast, and I was just using all that as some pretty low-hanging fruit and examples, but the other half of this stewardship podcast is that we are all going to be asked to do things that are really hard for us in the next 10 years, gang. And if we can't even factor in someone else's health that we don't know, what's going to happen when we need to be sharing water with other regions of the country? Are we even going to do that? Well, actually, no, we're not. That's why we're going to have the water wars of 2024. Where does our mentality have to go? How bad does it have to get before we just choose to care about other people and to push us past our belief system? Now, let me give you a personal example here, okay? Let's just say, because I'm not God. I don't know everything. I could be totally wrong about everything I've been looking at. Let's just say these giant ships, spaceships, extraterrestrial craft, appear over New York City, and they're huge. Let's just say they're 15 miles across. We'll say they're from Sirius. That's about how big the Sirius ones are. And let's say for some reason the Sirius AB folks have a whole hull full of Anunnaki. And those Anunnaki beam down onto the ground like a scene out of Independence Day. And they pull out a little cell phone looking thing off their utility belt, and it's got a big red button on it. And they take that and they push the big red button, and all of a sudden, all of us, or half of us, who have gotten this vaccine start wandering around like mindless zombies in a 1968 episode of Twilight Zone, doing the bidding of the evil aliens because, let's just say, the vaccine is a mind control agent from space, okay? Let's just say it is. And let's say the rest of people like me who have been saying, please, please, please get this vaccine. So maybe I'm selfish and I don't want to watch whistling, wheezing, hacking, choking babies come out and mothers bursting into tears and doctors trying to shove tubes through the fibrous crap that's grown through into the baby's lungs at that point and rip that thing. So now the baby's lungs are bleeding on the inside as well as having all the COVID fluid, and they're trying to pump it full of air. And in 2 minutes, the baby's dead anyway. Let's just say I'm tired of seeing that multiple times a day. Okay, let's just say I'm selfish and I want people to get vaccinated because I'm tired of looking at that devastating and horrific auditory and visual image over and over again. And let's say I'm looking around at these evil aliens controlling people through the vaccine. I will be the first person on this podcast mic making this podcast free to anybody who wants to hear it, and I will shout from the rooftops, stop getting the vaccine. Because I have seen the evil Anunnaki, and they are ruining people's lives in the future. I would be the first person to step on my own belief system if I saw evidence to the contrary. Okay? Now, I understand when I'm talking about a future COVID variant that would kill unborn babies. That's a future variant. Nobody's seeing that right now. You'd have to go on faith. That's a thing. I get that. We all have our belief systems. Our belief systems are rooted in our own faith systems and what we have faith in. And if you have faith in Anunnaki controlling us through a toxin in the vaccine, then, hey, guess what? Your future call is just as valid as mine. All right? Because that's all it is. It's the future. I have not been able to find any evil Anunnaki who have been trying to control us through mind-bending agents in this vaccine in any timeline. And neither have my angels or the angel who walks with the world or the angels who walk with other people corroborated the story of the Anunnaki and mind-bending toxin in the potential vaccine. But I could be wrong. So there you go. I'm not God. I'm not perfect. I will tell you, gang, that sometimes we have to see something to believe it, right? And how much do we need to see before we become incredible stewards of something? Obviously, we have floating rafts of garbage in the ocean that are extremely large. We can see that on Google Earth now. And it still really doesn't stop us from using plastic water bottles. Doesn't stop water companies from using plastic water bottles. So, I mean, do we personally have to have the apple snatched out of our hand that we're going to go take a bite out of by another hungry person and then get punched right in the face so that we don't chase them down for the apple before we believe that we need to think outside of ourselves? I mean, what's it going to take? You know, there were just billions of tons of water rained on the highest peaks in Iceland for the first time ever in recorded history. Fresh water up there, not snow, running down the mountain and melting the snow that's up there because it's temperate water, right? And whenever I don't know, if you've never lived in a snowy climate, if you hit it with regular water, it just melts it, right? So all of that fresh water is running down into the ocean, and that is the top of the conveyor belt of the Atlantic Ocean, Earth's conveyor belt. That is the top. And that's where, all that conveyor belt brings all of the hot ocean water from the southern hemisphere and delivers it up north, and it helps out with, things like the northern hemisphere not ice aging over and freezing. And then the cold water falls to the bottom of the ocean and rushes south because it's heavy and brings the cold water back down, and it warms up. And this is that conveyor belt, right? And when you put too much fresh water in the ocean, it slows that conveyor belt down. So we've got billions of tons of fresh water just flowing in to the ocean up north and killing that conveyor belt, which means that all of those northern band countries, especially Europe, especially the Celtic countries, that takes the hot water, which helps with their winters, out. And that's Ice Age City. That's really harsh winters coming along. So, I mean, what do we have to do to be the stewards of the earth? We really, now we're just, there's a few tiny things we can do, but there's a lot of damage that's just been done. And we're seeing that damage now. How bad does it have to get before we stop being so dang selfish, humans? We think our one little thing doesn't matter. Our one little vaccine I don't get doesn't matter. And then maybe I'm the one that the variant is growing in. And maybe I go breed the new variant onto 40 people that day, and they go breed it onto 20 other people. And pretty soon we have this god-awful thing. And yes, variants happen all over the place, gang. I'm not saying only unvaccinated people grow variants. I am saying that the variants of COVID grow in unvaccinated people at accelerated rates because there is nothing to deter them from being there in the first place. So, at what point do we take stewardship and make it a priority? I have some incredible people that I love so much that are not going to, they don't consider their sense of stewardship masks and vaccines. And some of these people have relatives and loved ones in their lives who are at great health risk. And I have looked ahead and seen some terrible things coming for their health risk people. And I just, what do? You just don't say anything because you're going to sound like you're trying to threaten somebody or scare somebody or whatever. And then that's not good. You don't want to be that girl, right? So at what point do our belief systems, all of our belief systems, have to be changed? And I'm telling you right now, I tend to be a science girl. I tend to be a big picture girl. I do talk to angels all day long and off-worlders and all kinds of beings, yet I also research like crazy. My stepmom is a doctor. I tend to read peer-reviewed medical reports. No, I do not demonize Western medicine, although I do believe that Western medicine has huge pitfalls in how to deal with the body as a whole. And I'm a huge holistic medicine fan and have done a lot of studying about holistic medicine also. I'm glad we have all medicines. And I do believe the big pharma companies are out to make money. I do believe that. Yet, at what point, America, do we decide that we've just got to make changes? We've got to make changes in how we use our water. We've got to make changes in how much we use our vehicle. It would probably be good if we got rain barrels. I did that whole podcast on water. And I know you guys, I have been sounding like doom and gloom Debbie lately, and I'm not doom and gloom. I believe in our ability to come forward and fix things. I really do. And maybe I get to be the person who gets to stare at this god-awful future COVID variant, and maybe, one or two people may decide that are on the fence to get this vaccine, and maybe that'll push us into less timelines than 3, with 4 being healthy timelines in the future. Gang, we also are not understanding the full range of the effects that the COVID virus does have long-term on people's bodies. So there's a lot. And this isn't about COVID. It's about stewardship. So, let's say I get sick. Say I'm not vaccinated. I get sick with COVID. Right now in Billings, Montana, we're a town of 166,000 people. Okay? We have 2 very, very large hospitals here. As a matter of fact, we have the largest hospital in the state of Montana in Billings with the Billings Clinic. And then we have another hospital that's massive called St. Vincent's, and that's the Catholic hospital. And both of these hospitals are they're block after block after block compounds, okay? Because welcome to America, we are not a very healthy society. Which is why I lean towards nutrition and holistic health, okay? Even though I don't believe that Western medicine ought to be set on fire and burned like a witch. I don't think extremism is not the way to go at this time, gang. It's just not. So even though we have huge hospitals here, huge, because we also absorb we absorb people into the hospital from counties all over the place. Both of our emergency wards are full. They're totally full. The hospitals are diverting people and diverting patients. If a young man falls off his skateboard and breaks his arm, he gets diverted. They can't see him up there. So when we talk about stewardship and something like a pandemic, and I'm just using this as an example, because if a person decides not to vaccinate and for whatever their belief system is telling them that that's just not what they're going to do, and they do get sick, maybe you are that person who can raise your vibration and stave off illness. And I think that's amazing. And I sure hope that you put out a lot of YouTube videos to help people. I do. Yet to be able to have to get sick and take up an emergency room bed, that also cuts the line in between of the person coming in with a heart condition or some kid who broke his arm or a litany of other things, all right? So again, we are trying to be taught multiple lessons right now as a human species about stewardship and how to care for something outside of ourselves and how to look at a bigger picture in order to form our belief system. Not just fringe fake news sites where somebody channeled a thing and said blah. You'll notice that I am not calling these 3 timelines out of 7 that I've seen with a future deadly COVID variant that's hideous. You'll notice I'm not calling that news. You'll notice I'm not really calling it anything except for a future prediction and something that we potentially could do something about. So if you're reading absolutes out there from anywhere that is not a heavily peer-reviewed, source, you might want to consider your source, okay? Because we are literally we can create whatever world we want. whatever world we want. And people are creating worlds where there's no COVID and then they die. And people are creating worlds where they don't, where they're so scared because of COVID and that they are not even leaving their house. I mean, we can create whatever world we want. Yet at some point, gang, part of the experience of being human is not to just live in a holodeck like on Star Trek, where you can call up anything the way you want it. Now, that is part of manifestation. So hear me say that. Yet the other experience here is learning to live in Congress, learning to live in harmony, learning to live in community. That's the other form of being a spiritual person, is living outside of ourselves. And I don't have exactly the right answer overall for people if a person's belief system is that vaccines are not a good idea. I don't have an answer for that individual because my belief system is so set because of what I see in the future. You know, I'm not going to try to pretend it's not, because it really is. And that is my perspective. Now, does that mean it's going to happen? It has to happen? Well, I'm hoping not. It's only 3 out of 4 timelines. So I'm 3 out of 7, with 4 being the predominant timelines that we skirt around this hideous variation of COVID. But the bigger point here is, myself included, you know, I believe, and it's my observation with how these angels have been working with the earth and with we people, we human beings here, beings made of humans here, that we're really missing a lot of what we're trying to learn as physical beings. We are trying to learn selflessness, not martyrdom, not give away the farm and who cares about your needs and you don't get to have an opinion, not that. But I read a phenomenal comment. I guess it was a comment. I was going to say it was a quote, and it was not a quote. It was a comment about, well, there was a discussion online about masks or something. And, you know, we had a big anti-mask, anti-vaccine protest of about 200 parents here in Billings, Montana, because the school board here made it mandatory for kids to wear masks to school and teachers to wear masks because this COVID variant, the Delta variant, is insane. It's very, very active in infecting people, right? So there was a little protest. It's America. People have a right to protest whatever they want. Peaceful protest. And someone made this comment underneath of the newspaper article detailing the protest. And the individual who made it, apparently this person's name was Kennedy Jens. And I wrote it down because it struck me. And this person's comment was, insisting on your rights without acknowledging your responsibilities isn't freedom. It's adolescence. And that really hit me because I can insist on all my spiritual rights I want. Yet if I'm not stepping up to my spiritual responsibilities, which include but are not limited to stewardship, not just for myself, but for other people, for the planet, for baby animals, for bees. We're killing our bees. Oh my God, please don't. Please don't buy flowers at places that breed genetically enhanced plants that kill the bugs that land on them, because then the bees take that pollen and they eat it and they die and they can't pollinate like they're supposed to, and our trees die and our crops die. So please don't do that. Please just let your flowers get eaten by bugs once in a while. You know, spray some Dawn dishwashing detergent and some water on your flowers like we used to back in the day to get rid of the bugs. We don't have to genetically engineer everything to kill the very insects that are helping keep our ecosystem alive. You know, at what point do we just let the bugs eat the flowers? At what point do we let nature be nature? At what point do we begin to be stewards of our water and our earth and each other? You know, it's nobody's asking anybody to do anything horrible. We're just asking folks to think outside of ourselves. Because if we don't, we're going to have some serious repercussions. Serious repercussions. I did a humorous 3-minute video that's on YouTube, and I posted it on my Facebook page and on my IGTV page. And, it's humorous. It's humor addressing this same subject in a much lighter way with characters that I made up. Because I really feel such an urgency to convey the idea of stewardship. So let me ask you this. Put the masks aside, put the vaxxes aside. Like I said, we're going to have differing opinions on that. And due to different belief systems, that's just going to be the way it is. Okay. And there's probably some people listening to this going, I am unsubscribing. She just called me a petri dish. And if that's honestly the case, so be it. That's, that is your right for sure. I just feel irresponsible if I do not bring forward the information that I'm given. Yeah, I would have felt just as irresponsible if I didn't bring forward the information on the water shortage that we're now having. I don't know that made any difference, but I tried. And so if we can all decide what we need to do in our realm of stewardship for ourselves and for others, for whatever your personal belief system is, And it's fair that we all have a different belief system. We're supposed to be different people on this earth experiencing the spiritual realm differently so that we can teach one another. Yet, if you can just come up with 3 things this week, 3 things that you are going to be a more acute steward of, and execute those this week and keep it up for a month, and then maybe add 1 thing in a month. Or wait 3 months until it's such a habit that it's easier to add that 1 thing. Maybe you decide to not use plastic water bottles anymore. Maybe you decide that you won't leave your car idling at a red light for a long time. Maybe you decide to get a vaccine. Maybe you're on the fence and you're like, well, I've kind of been putting it off, but this whole wheezing fetus thing kind of grossed me out. So, all right, whatever. What if, just what if? What if I learned that every single one of us needs to be concealed and carrying a firearm because it's really going to turn into the zombie apocalypse? Well, I'll go figure out how to shoot a gun. I'll probably be one of the first ones dead because all of that power that blows off of that gun blows up my arm. It blows through my nervous system. I can't even see straight when I fire a gun. It's so terrible. The impact, the energy that goes through my body from that thing. So I'll probably be dead if it's zombies and I have to protect myself with a firearm. You might want to hang out with me if you want my firearm, because I'll probably get 2 shots off, drop the gun. You can push me into the wad of zombies. They'll start eating me, pick the gun up, and help save others. Okay? I'll take one for the team there because I'm just going to suck. But what I'm saying is I'd be willing to do that if all the evidence pointed to the fact that that's what was required. So let's just allow ourselves to be open in our growth. Let's allow ourselves to define stewardship for ourselves. And in whatever way that is for you, please take those small steps. And just because this is part of my wiring, part of what I've seen in the future, part of a responsibility that I feel I am responsible for in bringing some of this information forward. If you are on the fence about getting a COVID vaccine, I would highly recommend you do it. You're not going to die. Trust me. There's nothing in there. It just tells the COVID virus how not to attach to your cells. That's all it does. If you truly believe that's not good for you, I do respect your decision as an adult. You are an adult, and I'm sure you have reasons to believe that. Let's all, however, figure out a way to be stewards in other ways then. Because I think I know, we've all got to knock it up a few notches, gang. Stewardship, it's going to push us past our me, my little section of what we want to be. And in that light, gang, I give you at the end of this podcast a song off of my 2008 release, A Red Lodge. It's an album I put out. You can find it on Spotify and iTunes and all the streaming services. And this particular song was written way back in 2008, and it's a humorous song. The album is an Americana album, and it won some awards. I was pretty proud of it. I'm a proud mom. I will leave you with this, gang, as we all decide which way that our own belief systems are pulling us to be stewards of this planet And let's figure out how we can apply our gifts and talents, because I know that every one of you have amazing hearts. No matter what your opinion is on masking and vaxing, okay? I know you all have amazing hearts. I know you know I have an amazing heart. I've explained where my position is coming from and why on all this. Yet all of our hearts, I believe, are in the same place. So let's figure out how to be the best stewards of that heart action. And in the vein of that heart action, hopefully, I will give you a laugh and leave this podcast on the song Me, Me, My from my album Red Lodge. I had a heck of a good time writing and recording this and playing the instruments on it and whatnot. Figure out how you are going to be the best steward possible. And I will see you next podcast.
Lordy, if that's the best that you can do, then go ahead and lay down and die and give us all a break for a while. I got news, it ain't all about you. Friends done left you high and dry, stole your job, they stole your life. At least that was your story just last week. I don't mean to cramp your style, but you've been banging that gong a while, and now I'm wondering something's beginning to stink. You don't know where you even try. Lordy, if that's the best that you can do, then go ahead and lay down and die and give us all a break for a while. I got news, it ain't all about you. I thought she was your bestest friend, and now you're on the outs again. You poor thing. I gotta say that since I met you, you always claim they're out to get you. Maybe you're the reason the phone don't ring. Me, my, you don't know why you even try. Lordy, if that's the best that you can do, then go ahead and lay down and die and give us all a break for a while. I got news, it ain't all about you. No, it ain't. You've been abused, used and chunked it up to losers. Been the victim of dirty cruisers. Not appreciated for the greatness you created. You've been stalked and killed, seduced against your will. Somebody made you spend the money set aside for bills. You ever notice it ain't your fault? Cause that would be no fun at all. Well, me, my. You don't know why you even try. Lordy, if that's the best that you can do, then go ahead and lay down and die and give us all a break for a while. I got news, it ain't all about you. Me, my. You don't know why you even try. Lordy, if that's the best that you can do, then go ahead and lay down and die and give us all a break for a while. I've got news, it ain't all about you. Not even a little.